Daredevil Season 1 is complete! And man, what an awesome ride it was. Marvel's just been kicking so much ass lately. I'm by no means a Marvel fanboy, but they just have it locked down in terms of their Marvel cinematic universe. What they do that's so good is each film or show has its own genre that it sticks to and sort of holds to those themes of that genre, and it just keeps them from feeling stale and boring and dull. Like, everyone feels like its own monster and its own movie, and it's just it all links together in the same world somehow and works despite the totally different genres with each of the films. So like Guardians of the Galaxy would be like a science fiction. Captain America the Winter Soldier was like a spy action thriller. Thor the Dark World was like a fantasy. So, and then we have Daredevil, which is very much like a gritty crime drama, like a mob drama. And they nail it so well. Like, there's so many great things to talk about this story. First of all, Charlie Cox, man, just kills it as Daredevil. His performance, the way he delivers his lines, you always sort of understand what's going on beneath the surface. Quite often he's sort of lying to characters, trying to put on a strong face, trying to deal with who he is as a man, as a hero, how he deals with the problems of Hell's Kitchen. He has that internal conflict going on where his father wants him to be a lawyer and do good, and he wants that as well, but he doesn't really trust the legal system, and he realizes its faults and where it falls apart. And with that, he dons the mask and goes out and just kicks ass as necessary. But that's a bit of a conflict for him, because his ass kicking mask side just falls short as well, and he starts to think, I need to straight up kill this guy Fisk if I'm going to stop him. So he's got that constant internal struggle going, and Charlie Cox just nails that perfectly. I thought he was so believable, and they even put that little red tinge in his hair, which I thought was a nice touch, because he's not really a redhead. Vincent D'Onofrio, I believe is his name, the guy who plays this guy from Men in Black 2. You remember him? He also played that powerful character in Full Metal Jacket, if you ever watched that. He killed it as Kingpin. I thought he always seems sort of like this sensitive, unsure of himself person. He's like the big guy who he's clearly was the fat guy kid growing up, who just doesn't have that confidence behind him. Even though he's big and strong, he sees himself sort of as this fat, insecure loser type. And that comes out in his voice. Even though he has this commanding physical presence, he doesn't feel that inside. And that's why his relationship with Vanessa is really powerful and important, because she brings that out of him. She makes him stronger. And as he gets closer with her, he starts taking more and more of the territory of the different mobsters that he's working with, and slowly takes over. Yeah, his whole arc as a character is really fascinating. I think Daredevil and Kingpin, they're both sort of different sides of the same coin, and that's what really drives the show for me and makes it so interesting and powerful. And even though they spend very few scenes together, their relationship is really like the most important in the show, I think. You see, because both of them are trying to do their best to help Hell's Kitchen. They were raised there. They both were raised by very extreme father types who wanted specific things for them, and both went in completely different directions with that, because it comes down to really just their natures. Like with Daredevil, you see he wants to be a good guy. He wants to be a lawyer. He wants to do his dad proud. But at the end of the day, in his nature, he's a fighter. He fights and likes that adrenaline. He likes getting out there and doing that. And he's not a killer. He doesn't want to kill people. He just wants to get out there and do what's right. And fighting is a part of that. He has no problem with that as a Catholic. But killing is where he draws the line. Where Kingpin, in the core of his nature, he's a killer. His dad was a bad guy, but was not a killer, was not as vicious as Kingpin himself is. Kingpin murders him with a hammer at a young age, and you just see how deranged this guy is at the core of his nature, which is very much a Catholic idea. I think you're sort of you are born into your own nature. There's not a ton you can do about it. But you see, as he is raised up, he's doing his best to help Hell's Kitchen as well. He's constantly justifying to Vanessa that when he kills people, he does it because he has to. He takes no joy in it. That's not who he is. And he seems to believe that, at least at first. but that killer monologue at the end when he's in that being transported in the FBI transport truck there, and he's telling the story of the Good Samaritan, and he has this revelation of who he truly is in that story. And it's a really powerful scene. And at the same time, Matt has the same thing. He realizes, man, he can use the law to take this guy down. He uses the law as well as Daredevil, but it's ultimately the law and truth and justice and those things that works. And he's able to take down the Kingpin through legal means. And using that, you see a huge point of Daredevil's character defined, and that's that he holds his side as a lawyer as almost as important as what he does as a superhero. And in this show, you don't see him really caring too much about his legal side until the end, and he realizes, no, this is a powerful tool. This can work. Yeah, so overall, I just thought the acting in general by all the characters was really well done. Even though I didn't think the writing for each character was done as well as some of the others, the actual performances and the delivery of the lines and how the characters were portrayed, I thought were just excellent. Specifically, Ben Urich, I thought was really well done. You really got that feel he was this sort of old school, gritty reporter, sort of living out of his time here as the world around him is changing. Newspapers, the way they've been run, just aren't, but he's trying to stick to those old school ideals. And like everybody else in the story, they're focused on justice and truth and doing things the right way and putting in the hard work to get that. So again, as a crime drama, like, that's just an incredibly important part of the story. What I really would have liked to see is after he's killed, I would have loved to see that his boss there, who he had problems with, publish his story, because I think a big part of the media and why as a mobster you're not really supposed to go after these kind of guys is because they'll work together. If you kill a media man, the other reporters should be stepping up and reporting on what happened and really investigating you like crazy, so there should be a serious consequence. So I would have loved to see that and have that tied in somehow to how the story concludes, because ultimately Ben Urich didn't have too much of an impact on the story because he's killed, and it sort of just ends with him. They get a little bit of his notes and things like that, so obviously he was incredibly important in terms of the investigation as a whole, and they're sort of finishing the job for his sake. But I would have liked to see the reporter side of it come out a little bit, maybe. The fight scenes were just so well done. Not only were they super well coordinated, everyone has its own feel and its own style, and it just had its own unique tension to it. Whether it was like a personal connection Daredevil had, like the fight with Stick, or just a totally different style, like the ninja fight with Nobu, or the long take brawl at the beginning, where it's just like a flat out drunken style brawl where he's dead tired. He's not able to use his skills in the same way he normally can, as cleanly as we've seen in other fights. There's just, everyone has its own thing. It was really neat to see. Also, it's great to see just how vulnerable Daredevil is. He's incredibly skilled. He's got this incredible skill set, but at the end of the day, he's still human, and he gets beat down and cut down constantly in this series. Just like a boxer, sort of, where he doesn't just get to go and hit everybody. He gets hit himself. He's got to take those beatings. He's got to get knocked down and get back up constantly. And it's just such a powerful scene and believable, and there's that tension because he doesn't feel invincible. He feels like he could be hurt or killed. And they even take a whole episode for him to heal up after the Nobu fight, where he can't even basically get out of his room. He's just so beat up and cut down. But yeah, the fight scenes were just awesome. My only issue with them is that there maybe weren't enough. I would have liked to see one or two good fight or action type scenes every episode. And I think there's at least one episode that didn't have one, and that was disappointing. But overall, really well done. Again, there's 13 episodes, there's a limited budget, so they just can't do all these things, I guess. Part of me wouldn't mind of actually seeing it cut down to like 10 or 11 episodes, tightening it up a little bit, and being able to have more of that action every episode. But hey, I'm not going to complain. 13 episodes, I thought it was excellent. On that, let's transition into some of the things I didn't think were as great about the show. I thought it was really good. A lot of these are personal issues. You might totally disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't think they're like technical problems with the show necessarily. I just, personally, I would have liked to see things done a little differently. So first of all, it was the side characters. Karen's story specifically was very disconnected from Matt and Daredevil. All her relationships were with Foggy and Ben, and sort of at the end they're supposedly this broken trio, and I didn't really get the sense that that mattered because she barely spent any time with Matt. So even when Foggy left the firm, it seemed like, why is she staying with Matt? She clearly has a much stronger connection with Foggy. You'd think they would be off together doing something. So I would have liked to see their stories and all the side stories really more connected with Daredevil himself. It's his show, and I would have liked to see how all those characters relate with him as the show goes on, rather than having their own stories. One other issue I had, and again it might have come down to budgeting, is there was a lot of telling versus showing. So we could have a scene explaining some important part of two characters' relationship, for example. They would just talk about it. I thought it was really a missed opportunity in the episode where we had the flashbacks with Foggy and Matt in college. Really, you had these flashbacks to back then, but nothing really happened. It flashed back, and it was them talking in the dorm room and talking by the stairs. That's really all you saw. And it was them explaining their lives. Oh, maybe if you went to class more, you'd have better grades. Oh, you're the valedictorian because you study so hard. It was all that telling, where I think you could have had a really cool background scene of something that happened in college that would have shown how smart Matt is, also given some value to Foggy, and told a little bit their origin from that time, and explored those characters a little more. But it came back to the talking about it, explaining, oh, we're such good buddies, we're going to do all this, we have this dream together, which is fine and good, and because the dialogue is so well written, it's okay, it works. But ultimately, I prefer to see a scene that shows an action or something happening that really sets that relationship for, like, why are they so close? Just because they're dorm mates, or did something happen that really brought them together? Same with, I found there's a lot of scenes that sort of went on a little bit too long. It would be Ben and Karen talking in the car together, and you'd get what needed to be told in that scene. You'd get the impact, it was there, you could move on, and then the conversation would just keep going. And it was like, okay, you're just rehashing the same thing you've gone through. It's not really adding anything more to the conversation or what happens to the scene to keep the plot moving. And again, I think it comes down to they're really trying to make Karen her own character and have her own story arc here. And I just didn't buy into her story that much. I just wasn't that interested in it. Not a lot was really going on with it. She was just sort of trying to learn how to investigate, and it was an empowering story in that she was sort of the victim of this crime and was not standing down. She was going to stand up and fight, and she really was the girl who throughout the story continued to push. She pushed Ben, she pushed Matt, she pushed Foggy to keep researching when they were down and felt like giving up. She was the driving force that kept that going. So I thought that was really, really neat and a really cool part of her character. But besides that, there just wasn't a lot else happening that I felt was that interesting. I was always kind of waiting in those scenes for it to get back to Daredevil, back to Matt, back to his story. Talk quickly about the suit as well, as I saw in the image of on the Netflix, and I was very concerned. I didn't really like how it looked in that image. But as I saw it in the show, I thought it worked really well. It looked a lot more like his sort of battle armor stuff from the 90s that he sort of remade. But the only thing I didn't like about it was the head. I wish the head was just straight red. It sort of looks a little clunky and weird. There's just too much going on with the head. I wish the body was more like body armor and the head was just the straight red, so it looked more like the traditional Daredevil. Would have also been cool to see the yellow used somehow, because in the comics he uses his father's old boxing uniform to sort of honor him, which is sort of neat. In this, it's more of like an armor to protect him. They talk about it. But that last fight scene I thought was just excellent. The conclusion, it just comes to this point where it's man versus man. You knew it was coming. An enraged Kingpin is a terrifying thing, as we've seen. He'll just straight up murder you with his bare hands. It sort of felt like, yeah, this guy is a legitimate threat. This guy is scary and could actually cause some harm to Daredevil here. So there was that tension in the fight. It just went down so well. I really loved how it concluded. Especially, I thought episode 12 was really slow. There wasn't a lot going on with it. There was a lot of disposition and dialogue, and it felt like it kind of, after that episode 10, it got sort of just bogged down for me. It felt like there was such a high climax to that episode where he fights Nobu and everything, and it would have been better to just keep the story flowing at that point. Make those last 3 episodes really a lot going on, high intensity, fast things happening. But I'm not the showrunner, and I'm sure they've done a much better job than I could do. I highly enjoyed it. Looking forward to season 2. What I'd like to see in season 2, I'd love to see more exploration of the Hand and the ninjas and that side of things. Stick, who's that big guy Stick is working for. I'd like to see more Daredevil vision. So they have a few times where they're showing what he can see or how he focuses on something. They use the camera to do camera tricks, so you can sort of get an idea of what he's sensing and what he's focusing on. I want to see more of that. I love that side of things. Now that Matt has become a lawyer and sort of believes in that idea of the importance of the law and how that can work, I want to see some more lawyering stuff happening. Not so much that it bogs down the story or that you're feeling like you're constantly in a courtroom, but enough that you can see how smart he is and how he uses that to his advantage within the court system. How smart him and Foggy are at using the law to do justice and do good. I love that side of things. It'd be nice to see them actually have clients and explain why they have this office and why they're meeting there constantly, because they don't seem to have that much to do. Ultimately, great story. Loved it. Really looking forward to season 2. That's my thoughts. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you later.